Hey everybody, I just wanted to put a little bit of a disclaimer in this video before the review starts. This is going to be kind of a short review for a variety of reasons. The first and most major reason is the fact that I've been so busy with school and doing all of my school-related things that I don't have that much time to make a video this week. This is not related to last week. I was sick last week and I lost my voice, so I really didn't have a voice to do a review of, so that was why I didn't do it that week. But this week, I do have time to do a video, I just don't have as much time, so that's why this might be shorter. Also, I'm learning how to use Premiere Pro, which is not the program I've been using for most of my videos recently. I've been using Vegas, but since I'm learning how to use Premiere Pro in college as my major right now, I wanted to apply it to these videos, and I thought that the best way to do it would be with a short video. And yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. This might be a bit shorter video than usual, as you're used to in terms of these music reviews as of recent. And it's not due to a lack of effort, it's just that I've been so busy. So thank you. Now without further ado, let's get into today's review, a review of the Deep House album 2012 through 2017 by Against All Logic. Now, Against All Logic is the side project slash alter ego name of electronic musician Nicholas Jaar, a musician that I had never been that familiar with as I was learning a lot about modern electronic music. He was one of those artists that I knew of, but I really didn't listen to. I just heard of him, and I just never really checked out his music. I kind of knew that he was into the electronic techno, maybe more ambient techno side of music, but that was about it. After a little bit of research, I figured out that he was a New York City-based electronic artist who's been making music since about 2008, but he really broke through in 2011 with his electronic album Space Is Only Noise. It's a very interesting and minimal piece of Microhouse that incorporates a lot of influence from ambient techno, which is one of my favorite genres of electronic music. I would recommend you check it out. I listened to it before checking out this current album that he just put out, and it's great. It's pretty subtle, but like I said, I'd recommend checking it out. It's pretty awesome. Since then, Nicholas Jaar has released more albums and EPs, most notably his recent 2016 album Sirens, which is still, it's a Microhouse type album, but it incorporates a bit more of a ominous soundscape type to it. I didn't check that album out, but that's what I was reading, and it seemed to have gotten this very similar positive reception as Space Is Only Noise did, so you probably can't go wrong with it if you're into the genre. After Sirens, though, he went quiet, or so people thought. Someone who was signed to Nicholas Jaar's label that he was releasing music on was known as Against All Logic, and he'd been releasing singles and small EPs since about 2014, even though he had been on the label since 2012. And about a couple weeks ago, he out of nowhere decided to drop a compilation album. Not really a compilation, it's billed as an album, but it's more of a compilation of tracks that he'd been doing since 2012 to 2017. And it wasn't until recently, when Pitchfork started reporting on it, that people figured out that this would have been Nicholas Jaar under a different name, and that is when the album started to get a lot of attention. Very soon after people realized who had made this album, praise started to flow in. Praise from Pitchfork, like I said, Consequence of Sound, Sputnik, The Needle Drop, and like I said, the reception was very, very warm, and I'm just here to add that praise, honestly, because I like this album a whole lot. 2012 through 2017 by Against All Logic / Nicholas Jaar is just a great piece of deep and funky house music that, while I'm not as familiar with house music as I am the more techno side of music, I can tell that this is a very quality piece of work in the genre. It has this huge element of these amazingly funky beats, great drum machine programming, great sampling, and amazing sound play that I just can't help but love so many of the tracks on here. Sure, it may feel like a bit more of a compilation than an album, but when the songs are this quality, that's not really a huge complaint. So at this point, I'll just talk about some of the tracks real quick, I'll give it a score, and then I'll escape into the night. So let's start out by talking about the tracks that I thought were the best. On this record, there are probably two songs that stand out to me the most. Those would be the third track, Some Kind of Game, and the closing track, Rave on You. Now, regarding Some Kind of Game, I love this track. It's so good. It's probably the funkiest cut on the entire record, delving into this very very entertaining sample of this guy going,
some kind of game, some kind of game.
it's great, and it kind of just transcends the genre of deep house, moving into just funky house music, which, once again, I'm not that familiar with, but from what I've heard on this album, I'm definitely going to be exploring more. There's this amazing piano sample that kind of plays throughout it. I don't know if it's a sample or if it's just Nicholas Jaar doing some programming and sequencing, but it's this very repetitive, almost All My Friends-esque piano playing that just is a backbone to the track. And while it does have a couple changes in the more verse and chorus type sections of the song, it's just, all of it's just great, and it all goes over well. Also, I love the way that that chipmunk vocal sample I was just mentioning doesn't really chipmunk in a way that disconnects it from the song, but it disconnects it from the source that it came from in a very fitting way. Because like you can tell that the original song was like a very funky piece of music, but this version of the song reinterprets it in a way that fits the house atmosphere that the song is portraying, and I think that that's just awesome. Also, I really love the way that Nicholas Jaar plays with sound in this song, and most notably the entire album. There are barely 4 bars that go by where it sounds the same as the last 4 bars, which in my opinion is a big complaint of a lot of electronic music that I listen to. It comes off as way too repetitive. But the way that Nicholas Jaar is turning down levels and sending samples back and chopping bits of samples, it just comes across as being very fluid, and it gives the genre soul that the genre seems to so desperately lose when that repetition is just 4 bars over and over and over again without much variation. Some Kind of Game is probably my favorite song on the record, but my close second favorite would have to be the song Rave on You, which is the closer. It's 10 minutes. It's a monolith of a song, but it's so good. It's just, it almost reminds me of DFA Records, which is LCD Sound System, Gorilla Toss, the Juan McLean, The Rapture. It's all of those guys' label. And they have this pioneered dance punk sound. And while I wouldn't go so far to call this song dance punk, I would say that Rave on You takes the dancey side of dance punk, and along with that cowbell, which is very reminiscent of DFA, turns it into this very, very just fun and awesome, but also kind of ominous sounding song. It's one of the more house influenced songs on the record, but it also has a little bit of an IDM type backbone to it, like an IDM soul. I get a lot of vibes of Aphex Twin on the track, but it's a lot dancier in a body movement way versus a mindful listening way that maybe an Aphex Twin record would try to put itself off as. But in my opinion, it goes off very, very well. I think it's just a great song. I think it's almost as good as Some Kind of Game. I don't have that much else to say about it just because it's just a pretty quality song, and I have no real problems with it other than maybe the length goes a bit too long, but I think for the most part it justifies its length. Also, the fact that it's the closer makes me want to listen to the entire record in one sitting, which is just always a good thing. And like I said, it might be kind of more of a compilation feeling type album, but when you close out the album with 2 of the strongest tracks, which I really didn't mention the other track, but that's also a great track. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I do remember loving it. But that song combined with Rave on You is just a great ending combination. Honestly, if we were going to talk about the weaker tracks, I would have to say that the opening track actually is probably my least favorite track on the record. It's got this strange distortion to it that, while I'm sure that some people are very much drawn to it, for someone like me, I'm not that into the way that it sounds. I think that it's a very disappointing direction for the beginning of the album. I think that the distortion hinders the song. If the song had a much more clean opening and clean sampling, it would be better. Maybe that's not how the sample was ever made, but I think that the sampling does hinder the song in the way where it just kind of becomes annoying. But the rest of the song, after the main opening couple minutes, I think the rest of the song is pretty good, so I don't hate the song at all. I think it's just probably the weakest track. Also, it's followed by the best stretch on the album, tracks 2 through 4, and it's only like a 3.5 minute long song, so it doesn't get old in the way where it would become annoying. It's just that beginning that I'm not a huge fan of, but it sees itself out before it can get too bad, so I really don't really have to complain that much. The other tracks are just uniformly pretty great for the most part. I'm not going to really get into detail with them because they kind of play off of the themes of the first song, the third song, and the 10th song, or the 11th song, which is the closing track. They're all just different variations on that formula, but in my opinion, the third track and the 10th track, or the 11th track, are the best versions of the formula. And that's not to downplay the rest of the record. The rest of the record is great. I just think that the two that I mentioned that are the best are the ones that are most worth mentioning, and they do speak to the formula of the rest of the album, just in a slightly less quality way, but not that much, really. To really wrap it up, this is just a great deep house record by Against All Logic, aka Nicholas Jaar. It is 66 minutes long, which is a bit long for my tastes. But I think that, like I said, the way that the album closes very strongly and for the most part opens very strongly makes it an easy to listen to record, and one that I will be revisiting throughout the year to get my fill of deep house and house music in general. I love how this record, despite being kind of repetitive in the way where it is just a bunch of deep house songs, it never really outstays its welcome because all of the songs are pretty good. And they do differentiate the tracks enough for you to pick them out of a line and say, oh, I remember what song this was. And while I do think it's more of a compilation type of an album, and it is more meant for not an album listening experience and more of a selective track listening experience, you really can't go wrong with any song except maybe the first track in a DJ mix or anything like that, because they're just all great songs. I give this album overall a low 8 out of 10, which means that I'm very excited to hear what Nicholas Jaar does next, whether it's under his Against All Logic name or his own name. Whatever he does, I'll be looking out for it, and I might review it on the channel if it comes out soon. I think he's going to take a break at this point because he seems to be more of a 2-year gap between albums person, but we'll see. And that's going to be it. Thank you guys. Sorry that this review might have been a bit shorter than you might be used to from me. Next week, hopefully we're going to return to the normal timing format that I have been kind of aiming for, like the 15 to 20 minute-ish review. It's going to be of the new David Byrne record, which I'm looking forward to a lot. I'm a bit skeptical, but I'm looking forward to it, so we'll see how it is. And with that, donate to my Patreon, like, comment, subscribe, share this video with your friends, show it to Nicholas Jaar if Nicholas Jaar cares enough. And until next time, I will see you guys later.